Hello, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome back, Force here, and today I'd like to talk with you about Endgame in the Division, what there is to do, how it's been presented, and also I'd like to share with you a revelation that I had, and that is that this game is basically a third-person shooter of Diablo. If you like loot-focused games in which you are basically always trying to min-max and find that perfect set of gear with the perfect stat rolls, that is this game, through and through. Now, the different things that you can do to come about that gear right now are fairly limited, but bear in mind we are not even a week out from launch. Endgame is going to be evolving. We already know about incursions and a multitude of other things that they're going to be adding as activities for people to do at max level, and some of those can actually be done while leveling up. So things will be changing, things will be evolving, there will eventually be more to do than what is there right now. But I'm still enjoying what there is right now, and I've been having, honestly, a really good time. I plan to play The Division, but I didn't plan to really get this into it. And you guys, if you guys know me, you know that I can really get obsessive over games and then eventually move on. But I want to talk with you about what we have right now in The Division and how I feel about it. So right now, as I mentioned, this is through and through a loot game, 110%. This game is honestly more about loot than it is about shooting. It's about getting that best piece of gear. How are you going about getting this gear? Right now, there are three main ways. There are challenge missions, dark zone, and crafting. So I'm going to start from the top and actually go from what's basically least to most important in my eyes. So first, we've got challenge missions. Let me say, these are amazingly fun. Number one, they're insanely difficult. Right now, I'm decked out in entirely yellow gear. That is the highest rarity. And I might not have the absolutely ideally perfect stat rolls, but they're pretty damn good. Right now, I've got about 130,000 DPS, 70k health, and around 25 or so K electronics, which electronics affects how good my skills are, like my heals and things like that. So I've got some pretty good stats. I've got some pretty good gear. It's still insanely challenging. Not only do they bump up the health of enemies and the damage that they deal, but it does appear like they've got improved tactics, or at the very least, they're a hell of a lot more aggressive than they are in normal and hard mode. You are constantly getting rushed up in the face by shotgunners, by flamethrower peoples, by people with bats, and they hit you hard. Lots of dodging and weaving, but I think the thing that really shines the most is that when you do this, when you're presented with this challenge of them dealing more damage and taking longer to kill and being more aggressive, it actually requires teamwork. I would say most of the game, and certainly the entire leveling experience, teamwork isn't really needed. You just shoot things and they died pretty quickly. But when you are presented with this big challenge come the end game and challenge missions, you have to work together. You have to be doing damage buffs, you have to be shielding your allies, you have to be healing each other, you have to be rezzing each other, you have to be communicating. And when all of those things come together, it is just a beautiful concoction. It's real, honestly, challenge mode is so much fun. I've been loving it. And every day when we get our new daily for a challenge mission, I can't wait to do it. It's so exciting. Now, I said we're going from the least to the most important, and I just talked about how amazingly fun this is. How is this on the least important end of the scale? Because frankly, it's not worth it in terms of the gear. And this is a gear-based game. It is worth doing for the fun, but it is not an efficient method of acquiring gear. So the reason you do challenge mode dailies is because you're guaranteed a yellow item at the end. The problem is it takes usually an hour to an hour and a half. Now, this will change over time as people get better gear, but as people get better gear, they won't need to do... When you get gear good enough to be doing challenge mission runs in like 20 to 30 minutes, you're probably not going to need whatever junky yellow comes at the end of it, because you'll probably have min-maxed pretty hard. And again, you get yellow items quicker by doing the other methods. You get more of them. You just overall get more benefit. So as much fun and as much as I love the challenge mode, it's really not worth the time when it comes to gear acquisition. It's worth it for the fun, but not for the gear. And for a lot of people, that's going to basically keep them away from doing it, essentially. Again, you might say, well, you're guaranteed a yellow, so maybe when you just start out, you're going to want to go to get that guarantee. No. Because when you just start out and all you have is purples, it's going to be a tough go at it. And it's going to take a long ass time. And again, you'll be better suited in the Dark Zone and doing crafting. So now let's go to the middle one, the thing that I think is equally important in terms of acquiring gear and the end game. And that's the Dark Zone. Now, the truth is, you're going to be spending most of your time in the Dark Zone, so you might consider this the most important, but truth is, crafting, as far as I'm aware, is where you're really going to be picking up your gear right now, and lots of it. So the Dark Zone is where you will be, and you'll be farming Phoenix credits, and you'll be farming bosses for the potential for them to drop yellow items. You're going to spend a lot of time here. You're also going to want to spend a lot of time here because as you level up and eventually get to Dark Zone rank 50, this gives you access to more yellow items. But most of what you're getting when you purchase that is yellow crafting recipes to craft the gear that you want. And through crafting, you're able to continuously reroll stats and try to get that perfect roll, that perfect piece of gear. So while the Dark Zone is where you'll be spending most of your time in gear acquisition, the reason you are there is so that you can get a lot of those yellow recipes in order to craft your best gear. And that brings us on to the third and most important part of the Division endgame right now, and that is crafting. You're going to be picking up these high-end blueprints, once again, as I said, from the Dark Zone, but also from your base of operations vendor, and you will be constantly recrafting pieces of gear that you want. Say you want a marksman rifle, an assault rifle, an SMG. You're just going to keep re-rolling them and keep using crafting resources to try to keep getting that best piece of gear. That is really, ultimately, what the end game right now is in the Division. This is how you're going to get that item that you want so desperately. Yeah, you can rely off boss drops in the Dark Zone, but when you only get one at a time and you're not guaranteed one from every boss, it's going to take so very long for you to get that item that has those stats that you really want. So that is why just continuously chain crafting is at the moment the biggest focus of the end game gear acquisition here in the Division. Now you might have noticed I didn't talk about PvP, and frankly that's because right now it's non-existent. Everyone is trying to level up their Dark Zone rep and trying to accumulate Dark Zone credits, although you get plenty of those. Mostly it's the Dark Zone rank though. And the problem when you go PvP rogue and you die is that you lose like 1 to 2 levels in your rank. That's going to make it a lot harder to get up to 50. So right now, honestly, at level 30, I'm not seeing anyone PvP in the Dark Zone. Now I've managed to make my way up to Dark Zone rank 50, and I think I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen rogues here at max level. It's just not happening. People aren't going rogue. It's way too risky. In fact, I'd like to just briefly touch on that fact and say, I think they need to do something. I think they need to change the rogue system because as it stands right now, nobody wants to do it. It is way, way, way too punishing. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they're responding to feedback where people complained that they didn't want to get shot in the Dark Zone. I don't know. I'm just curious as to why have a PvP zone if you're going to punish it so hard anyways, basically making it so that it might as well not be a PvP zone. But I digress. Truthfully, while PvP is an aspect of this game, it's not the biggest. It's all about the loot, and PvP is just something that people will sometimes do, but if they do and they die, it's, yeah. It's something else. And you might be curious as to why I didn't mention dailies. It's honestly because they're really not that big of a thing. So every day you get 2 hard mode dailies, which gives you some Phoenix credits, but you get just as many credits by killing 1 or 2 bosses in the Dark Zone, which takes like less than 2 minutes. Whereas going through the heroic version of a daily takes a lot longer, maybe between 10 and 20 minutes. So it's not worth it for the Phoenix credits. It's not worth it for the blue gear that you get, that's for sure. And the only thing that's really worth it is the daily challenge mission, but I think I covered challenges pretty exhaustively. You do the daily challenge mission every day. It's a lot of fun. You'll get a guaranteed yellow, but it's also not worth the time if all you care about is getting gear. So there you go, guys. That is some information as well as my opinion on the current state of the endgame in the Division. Now, as I touched at the top, this is all going to change over time. They'll be adding incursions and a bunch of other things that will give us more activities. I know that there's going to be gear sets eventually in the game where you've got multiple parts of the set and you get bonuses and stuff. So there's going to be a lot coming. A lot will change, but right now we've got challenge mode, which, while amazing, is not worth the time. You'll be running around the dark zone a lot, leveling up your rank, but also getting yellow drops from the bosses and just breaking down the purples that you get for crafting material. And primarily, you're going to be focused on crafting. Get the recipes for the stuff that you want and just keep crafting it until you get exactly what you're looking for. There's also recalibration, and this just basically helps offset getting bad rolls on certain stats. And that's, while a nice thing, not really the focus of this video. All right, guys, well, that is going to do it for me here today. Thanks so much for stopping by and listening to me talk about the current endgame in the Division. Stay tuned, as I will be continuing to play this for the foreseeable future, and I'll likely have more to say and talk about. Hope you guys all have a fantastic afternoon, and until next time, I'll see you later.